What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again. And yeah, it's been a week. It's been a long week for me, but listen, I'm back in here. And if you were like me and you watched 8 games this weekend, you need to seriously give yourself a pat on the back. You are a trooper. That was a lot of football. And I was trying to figure out how to do it. The reality of it is just life is a lot, and it's hard to sit down and get some time to actually sit down and go over the games and to react to all of them. So I figured, you know what? Why not? Let's just go live. I know I didn't really tell anybody, and it is what it is sometimes. It's going to happen that way. And so tonight it's just going to be off of the fly. I'm going to give you my reactions, not as in-depth as normal, but we're going to go through and we're going to break some of this stuff down. And really, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through and we're going to try to kind of go and I'm going to try to compare and contrast the two this week. We had 2 really exciting brands of football up against each other. I really enjoyed both of them, and in all reality with it, I think that each one has their own unique things to offer, but they also have some downfalls. And I think really the reality of it is that I would say about 75 to 80% of both of them with their rules and everything, it might even be 85%, are exactly the same. But there are things that I like in each of the leagues, and I will get more into it and break it all down. I will say that sitting down and watching things, I will have to say, I don't know what it is about the feel of the USFL. I just feel like I like the USFL better. I don't know why. I don't know if it really is that nostalgic feel of it. I don't know really if it's the style of play that I like more. I don't know if it was just because it was brand new again for me and I've been watching the XFL and the same players consistently for 9 weeks now. I don't know, but I felt like this week when I was sitting down and watching the games, I felt like all but one game. That was the last game. It was the Maulers and the Breakers. That game was atrocious. I'm just going to get that out there. That was probably the worst game of the weekend by far. But as a whole, I think that the USFL games just were better than the XFL games when it came to just the enjoyment of sitting and watching and enjoying a game of football. At least that's how it felt for me. Now, will I say that the excitement was kind of more in the XFL? Maybe a little bit more, but I enjoyed it through and through. What's up, Prime Time? Vegas Mark, what's going on? What's up, Mitridate? Good night. I can't speak. Mitridate. So, kind of what I'm going to go on, and we're just going to kind of go through and kind of work through some of this stuff. So, as I'm kind of as I'm looking at these 2 leagues, and I'm kind of going through and comparing and contrasting the 2. I really I liked how the USFL did the kickoff last year. I thought that they had just enough things. I don't think, they're trying to get from 80% return rate to 90%. I don't need the 90%. Give me the 80%. That is totally fine. I think that them moving it back that extra 5 yards just it gives too much of an advantage to the return team. And I think that also, when you look at some of these total yardages and if I'm going down to the total yards, like for the Stars and for the Showboats, I think that it hurts the total yards because you're starting so much closer to the goal line that there's less yardage to be gained throughout these drives. So, instead of starting at an average of, let's say, the 25, you're starting at the average of like the 35 is kind of really where I felt. Now that might be a little bit drastic, but I just felt like it was just too far ahead to where, each drive you're kind of eliminating, about 10 yards from what you could do. Because if you say, okay, so there's there's 9 drives, and an average starting place of 5 yards ahead. Well, if 9 times 5 is 45 yards, you add 45 yards to 285. 280 yards, 295 yards. All of a sudden, now you're over 300 yards. So that's kind of where I feel like the USFL should have just left that alone. I really do like the whole kicking thing with the punting in the USFL. I like the fact that kickers mean more in the USFL. I don't like the extra point system in the XFL. I like the 3-point system, but I would rather it just be like the USFL, have the 1-point conversion, have a 2-point conversion, and I'm okay for the 2-point conversion, have the 1 point be the kick. The 25-yard field goal is fantastic for me. I like it. And then you have the 2-point, and then you could have it from the 5, the 3-point from the 10. I'm totally fine with those. I like the 1-point kick. The reason being is that I've seen it all season, and they're starting to, these last few weeks, starting to get into where when they score a touchdown, they get things right back, they line back up, and and they go. Where before in the XFL, what was happening is that, they were scoring a touchdown, they're celebrating all giddy, and they're forgetting that they got to run another play. So what they've done is half of their play clock now is completely gone because they've been, celebrating through it. And these guys have gone from this high to where now they've got to refocus themselves in such a short period of time to go back out and try to score again. Now, they've adjusted to it, but I just like the easy kick the field goal and keep it kind of more of a traditional style of game too. And again, it makes it look like it's football. You kick the easy extra point and you get, the nice quote unquote rounded football scores. I just like that. The punting game, I'm not a fan of in the XFL. I think it gives way too much to just blasting the ball as far as you can and making sure you keep it in the hashes. And again, I get the whole fact that we're trying to get them to return the ball. But the thing that we're eliminating is we're eliminating the possession game. We're eliminating really the dominance of the defense. And listen, I get it. I know that here you've got a guy who's an offensive guy who is, advocating for the defense, and I understand that. But it just feels right to have all the aspects of the game and just kind of nerfing the punt game where you can kick it and it goes out of bounds at the 2-yard line and have it at the 2-yard line as opposed to taking it at the 35. So you're penalizing a kicker for being good. That's the issue that I have here. These leagues aren't meant to penalize you for being good. It's meant to accentuate and show your abilities. And that's where with the XFL that does kind of frustrate me. Now, granted, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to set it up so that the offenses go for it more, but I haven't really seen it materialize so much in the last few weeks with that. I feel like the kicking games with these guys kicking 54, 55-yard field goals, I feel like that kind of negates some of that decisions where they would go for it. I mean, I feel like that the advantage is just way too much. If you ask me, what I would like it to be is I would like it to be if it goes out of bounds, you get it where it's at. If you get a touchback, then the touchback's like at the 30 or the 35-yard line. I'm totally okay with that. But when it comes to the punting game, I like the USFL better. The kickoff, I'd rather have the regular kickoff. I'm not a huge fan of the USFL kickoff, but at least it does get guys back at like the 25-yard line, the 30-yard line, as opposed to what we saw this week with the USFL. With them moving the kickoff back, what it's done is essentially given them really an extra 5 yards and sometimes more because they're getting that extra head of steam to where it's more time for the receiving team to develop the play, which I think is just too much of an advantage. They need to just move it back and just leave it be because they've been getting way too many good kicks, if you ask me. And the offense hasn't had to really grind it out so much. And granted, in that last game, they didn't really do a whole lot of grinding, but there you have it. What's up, Mike G? Platoon, what's going on? No, I haven't even touched any of the games yet. I've just been comparing and contrasting both of them. What's up, Tuck the puppy? So, what we've got going on here, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to start working in some of these games. I'll give you my thoughts. I'm going to go back and forth, and that's totally kind of cool. You guys go ahead and give me your comments if you want. And I'll try to hit them as we go. I didn't ask. Everybody hearing me fine? I'm sure you are. So let's go ahead and I've got the USFL up here first, but you know what? Let's go ahead and let's start with the XFL. And we've got Houston here, and Houston has a really, really nice record. 4 was the extra point kick because it makes it a little easy for me. Take strategy out for me. No, I like it being easy. I like the extra point being easy. That's been a thing in football for me. So it's kind of like traditional, like I said, nostalgic. I don't know what it is, but it just felt like the USFL just felt more like watching professional football for me. And I know, here's the thing. The ESPN and Disney have done their thing, and I've said this before. It's almost like this is like Disney and ESPN are viewing this as an exclusive product of theirs. That yes, this is a partnership between the XFL and Disney, but really it's like this exclusive ESPN product is kind of how I've been kind of viewing it. And I think that's how that really Disney has been portraying this thing, to where yes, you are getting some primetime stuff, some stuff on ABC, but really not the whole focus. Whereas I thought with the broadcasting and the way that everything was, I mean, they brought out some big guns for the USFL, and they did last year too. Joel Klott, you've got Kurt Menefee. They had Brock Heward out there, Devin Gardner, which everybody knows big time Michigan football there. And then you've got guys like Jason Garrett, Jack Collingsworth, and oh my gosh, Jack Collingsworth and Jason Garrett, those two guys together. I mean, you hear Jack Collingsworth, he is his dad. I mean, man, like Chris Collingsworth, if he's like sick or anything, they just can insert his son. His son just does a fantastic job. Not only does he sound exactly like his dad, but he does such a good job. He and Jason Garrett, they give you just enough of explaining what the play is to not try to make it doesn't feel like I have two guys who are trying to show me how smart they are. Like I don't feel like I'm in a room with a bunch of know-it-alls that have to show you that they know it all. I feel like it's just organic and the way that it happened. And of course, you've got Joel Klott and Kurt Menefee. Those guys are just professionals. Now I get it. We're not going to get those every week, but it just to come out this first week swinging like they did was excellent. The other thing, and again, I've switched right off of the games back onto my perception of things, but I just have to say it and I have to do it. The other thing is that it'll be interesting to see where these, the kind of the fans in the stands line up. It'll be interesting to see. Now, if you looked at the stands in the off games, we'll call them, meaning more the hub city as opposed to the hometown favorites. So you had the Birmingham was the hometown team, and then you had Memphis, which was the hometown team, and then the other games were kind of like the hub teams. But those two teams represented to where I think they said that they had over 30,000 people in that stadium. I don't know. I thought I heard that on the broadcast. We'll see what the actual numbers come out, because if they're getting that in Memphis, that is just crazy. And it'll be interesting to see how this keeps going on when we have, the Michigan game. Now Canton's going to be another story because neither one of those teams are a hometown team in Canton. But that Michigan Michigan game is going to be interesting to where if Birmingham for their home games, if they can draw those type of numbers and crowds over 20,000 people or whatever a game, all of the sudden now this USFL now is looking like the true contender, and like they might have a leg up on the XFL. The XFL, like I said, has been the flash, but the USFL is bringing the pound, and we'll see what's going on here. Give me a second. So, I don't think that. I don't know. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of things. The XFL is not a developmental league. Yes, the XFL is here's the thing. These guys have played football for a whole bunch of years. You can say developmental league, you can say this, you can say that. Me, here's my thoughts, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't get in those discussions. I don't do those kind of things. What I look at it is that it's professional football. Guys are getting paid to be there. Minor league baseball, it's professional baseball. Guys are getting paid to be there. And so as you look at it like that, the reality of it is it's like anything else. If, like I've said, if you put minor on something, if you label it, it will always be labeled. If you keep a label off of it, people will make their own judgment calls on it. I can tell you, if you were to take somebody who doesn't watch football, somebody who doesn't know anything about football, you turn either one of those games on, they're not going to know the difference between that and an NFL game. That's just the truth of it. If you take a non-sports fan, the person, if you just take somebody who just sees it on TV, they're going to see both those. They're going to see football. You take just a regular fan, what they're going to do is they're going to pull this. Oh, okay, football's on. Well, who are these teams playing? I don't know them. That's what I get a lot with the XFL and with the USFL. People come over, I'm with people, I turn the games on, and, we're sitting there watching, because, listen, people love to watch football. When you're hanging out with people, when you have family events, you got the TV there. What do you have on? You have on football. And the reality of it is that people like watching football. You got good football on the TV, and I will say all of the games really had good football in them. Now, it was a bit of a slugfest and a bore snore fest, that last game between the Breakers and the Maulers, but it picked up a little bit, and I get it. They're new head coaches. These guys are trying to figure these teams out, and yeah, these teams have kind of been stripped. I mean, a lot of these teams in the USFL were picked over. Their best guys got taken in the NFL, and especially on these teams that weren't the best teams in the league. So not only were, they've got the other players that they have, and they weren't very good team last year, but now they're coming back into this thing and having been already picked over as well. So not only were you not a good team last year, but your best players are now gone because they went to, the NFL and then ended up in the XFL and the whole 9 yards. But, I digress. What I'm saying is that I don't like labels. I don't like labeling things. I just like calling it like it is. I like looking at something. I like being honest. I like being able to give an honest opinion about something without people getting offended, without people getting hurt, making an honest assessment of something, looking at it and trying to figure out how to get better. I don't just put that this person's professional, this is amateur, this is that. I just look at it and I can tell you whether or not I liked it, whether I didn't like it, what I think needs fixed, what I think was great. I give you my opinion, and then I look at things objectively, and I try to fix it. That's how I do things, and that's how I look at it. You guys can go ahead and you can argue, all you want till the cows come home about what you think is what with it, but at the end of the day, that's how I look at it. Now, this first game, so here's the one thing about the XFL, and I will say that keeps it kind of interesting for them. So when you're looking at the XFL, the thing about about the XFL is that I feel like the XFL, and it's weird because the rules are almost virtually the same, but I feel like the XFL has this like built-in, I don't know, like it's almost like cheat code. I feel like that the teams that never really get an opportunity to like seal the deal and really win the game. Whereas I don't feel like that as the USFL. I feel like if a team's been dominating the game, that they have that edge to win it. Whereas I feel like I'm playing Madden on rookie sometimes with the XFL, meaning that, a team's down by like 17 points with like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but because they can score 18 points, now granted, I know they can score the exact same 18 points in the USFL, but it just feels different that they can come back, and, that it's just so easy to come back in the XFL. And, the parity, it might be great, but I just... like, I don't know. At the end of the day, you just kind of feel like if you were the team to win, you should be able to feel like you won. I will say, though, looking at this game, this Vipers team, I felt really bad for them. They literally can't figure out a way to win. When you look at the way that they've played their hearts out. I feel like that they finally got a quarterback. I mean, he was injured for most of the season, so he never really got a shot. McClendon, he's finally a guy that's really coming in here. He's coming into his own. He was 27 for 37, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The guy's getting sacked like nobody's business, though. 4 sacks. You look at it, Lovett had a great day. I don't know. I think that Rod Smith was hurt. You could definitely tell that when they were playing this game. Lovett had another great game. The way that he was running, I thought that they should have given him the ball more, but the way that things were transpiring for them, they just, no matter what, it felt like this Vipers team, they never really could get really a leg up. Meaning you felt they were leading at half, but you never really felt like they were leading. And then Houston came back in the third quarter and just opened this thing up. And I will have to say that, the fumbles, you've got the fumbles that hurt them in this game. Their defense, how many penalties did they have? Because that was another huge, that's just been a huge thing just across the board, is that these teams, their composure with these guys, it was 6 for 6, but they had some big penalties that hurt them throughout this game. You just, like I said, I think that their offense is turned into a decent offense. Their defense shoots themselves in the foot. It's just too little, too late for them. The Roughnecks, Silver still can't figure out what to do. He threw 2 interceptions, and they couldn't capitalize on it with the Vipers. It felt like the Vipers could do just about everything they needed to, but punch the ball in the end zone and score points. They can't. They have not figured out who their next guy is. You got Borgie, who's doing well. Give me 1 second here. Readjust this a little bit so we can see this a little better. Okay, so Borgie is just a star, but they need to figure out somebody on the receiving end. Just, yeah, they're hitting guys, but guys are not really standing out since since Kirkland went down. And Burnett was kind of supposed to be that guy, but he hasn't been. The interesting thing for me is I didn't realize, because they kind of quit playing him, that Nick Holley had been traded, which Nick Holley, hats off to him in that San Antonio team. I think that he is making the difference for that offense and getting them over that hump this past week. But him not playing and being on that offense could be part of that spark that they're missing. Remember, he wasn't really getting a lot of passes thrown to him, but he was playing early on in those first few weeks where they were just dominating in that offense, and you had Kirkland back in there as well. And I'm wondering if some of that has something to do with it. This defense is just sick. The reality of it is that defense was just kind of subpar through the first half, and you're like, oh, okay. And then they just turned it on, and it was just, like I said, they had 4 sacks. McClendon, and they just came after him, and it was lights out from there. This defense won the game for them. It was just the South. If any of these teams can figure out how to have an offense, they could win the championship. I mean, their defenses are that good. The problem is that right now nobody has an offense. And sorry guys, I have not been paying attention to you. Love how all the XFL final week games matter. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice thing too about we've got going on here with the XFL. And as I'm kind of switching gears here, with the XFL, I'm going to continue on with here. We'll go back and we'll pull up the next game from the XFL, because that was the Orlando and the San Antonio game. And you know, the crazy thing is that all of these games mattered. We had some more overtime games this week, and let's see here. I really thought Vegas was gonna win. Yeah, it felt like they did, and they're so talented. Spoil the Sea Dragons. I hope not. I hope the Sea Dragons keep going on, and I know guys don't like Danucci, but that's okay. Bro, tell me, why does McLeod, Bethel Thompson, the quarterback of the Breakers, why does he look like Ryan Fitzpatrick? It's because they both are white, and they both have a huge beard, or had a huge beard. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm joking, but he does. You are right. He does. Tuck, I'll give you all of that all day long. See here, enough talent out there to support both leagues. You can make an argument for a third league of 8 teams too. Here's where I would. This is Tyler's world. I live in it. You don't have to, but you're more than welcome to jump on board, and you're welcome to live on the island with me. I have no issue, and I realistically I think that there's plenty enough talent out there to where we could have at least 2 leagues of 12 teams each. I think that would be a nice round number of 24 teams between the 2 leagues. That would feel fresh. It would feel good. Do I think that maybe both leagues could do 16? It's a bit of a stretch to get 8 more in there. But it would kind of make it a nice, smooth 32. 32 in the NFL, 32 in the XFL, in the USFL. I think that would be pretty good. But anyways, turning my attention to the Orlando and the San Antonio game. This was another one of those where I thought that, you know, Orlando was going to come in and they were going to give it to this Brahmas team, and this Brahmas team just kind of stuck around and they figured out how to do it. I thought that, you know, Quentin Dormady was going to be the answer for them after they beat the Defenders, and after they beat the Defenders, they've fallen flat on their face twice with 2 teams after what they did to the Defenders they should have beat. But this offense, for some reason, they cannot figure it out. When you have, I mean, I don't know. When you got your quarterback 9 for 17, that's just ridiculous. A guy who had been throwing the ball around against one of the best the best defenses, it makes no sense. I have no clue how they fell flat on their face. Francois is not the answer. I can tell you that. Darrington's been running really well. I think they've kind of found a guy in him. The thing about it was he was sharing reps with Martin. And I think Darrington is a guy who needs his reps. He needs that, you know, that 12 to 15 carries to really get him going, get him in the game. Let's see here. What's going on? That fake punt. Dude, those fake punts are just insane. You mean to tell me, okay, so like it's one thing to throw the lob and the guy do it. Dude, Brown threw a big time big boy bomb. He was like, "Nuh-uh, I'm gonna throw, I'm gonna throw this, and I'm gonna launch this thing 30 yards down the field, throw a perfect pass, and like my name is Aaron Rodgers or something." I mean, it was ridiculous. Okay, so Clyde, what are you saying is a good number? My 24 or my 32? I would love to have 32. I think 24 is realistic. I think that each league can expand to 12 teams within year 5 for both of them, and I think that it's totally fine. But yeah, they were just a dumpster fire on offense, and that's the reason why I got the Brahmas where they are. The Brahmas, Jake Cohn. Listen, his stats look great, but I can tell you he ain't going to be taking you to any championship. When he gets pressured, he is going to fold, and they only sacked him one time. Patrick, how can I say this? He's a big, strong back, but I think that they need somebody else, and they don't really have anybody else that can really run the ball. I think if they could get somebody else that's just a bit more explosive. Patrick he's a great guy to come in and spell things. I think he's going to be your guy that can come in and be your short yardage guy to pound the ball in that end zone, but they really need a guy that's just athletic and that can move for that offense, and they just don't have it. And here's my boy Nick Holley. Nick Holley really showed up for this team and brought a spark to this pass catching offense that we haven't seen with them yet. See, I loved the Guardians punter throw. Yeah, dude, he threw a freaking bomb, and it was just insane. Here's the thing that's the kicker for me. It should have been a touchdown. That should have been a TD. I wish it would have been a TD. That would have been so awesome with that. But it was awesome. But that's kind of where I'm sitting at. They've found that guy that they need, that spark with Nick Holley. I would like to see them have a running back. But I think that this is a team that kind of like what we saw with that Michigan Panthers team. I think that they can really in year 2. I think that they can find those pieces that they need, fill in those holes, because they really do. They're a few pieces away. They need a quarterback, which I think that they can find. There's plenty of guys out there. As we've seen with in the XFL and the USFL, that, going through these guys and finding them, I think is good. Now, let's go ahead and what? Wasn't felt rush. I don't know, give Holley and Akers the ball. Yeah, and I really like Holley better than Akers. Akers, I feel like, Akers can do some things here and though. Oh yeah, 24 teams is where it's at. Emerson. What's up, Jared? Was the guy for the Brahmas the past few weeks. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. The Brahmas, they're surprising you. I think that they're a few pieces away. Not this year, next year. I think that they'll be a really good team. That defense is really good. I'll tell you the one thing though that they've got to watch is that some of those guys they're letting the game get to them on defense. They had some stupid penalties that they never should have had. But all in all, it was a great game for them. The Guardians choked, and that doesn't really surprise me after what they did after they came out and laid an egg after they beat the Defenders. So the XFL, they weren't two bad games. That one was just kind of a weird. It was just a weird one, and the Guardians were really they were just really hard to watch. Even though the Brahmas really wanted to try to lose that game. Do you think that the Defenders and the Roughnecks will rest some of their starters versus Arlington and San Antonio this week? I don't know. I don't think you're going to get that much out of that. The Roughnecks are not going to. They got to figure things out. The Defenders might, but I doubt it. I say the XFL is getting better from week 1 through week 4. Guardians need to go for it on 4th and 15. But the way that they played offense, I wouldn't blame them either. They better. Tammy looked like he was in pain the last 2 games. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, King getting some more playing time, I think might not be a terribly bad thing for them. Moving on to the first game of the USFL season, I thought this was fantastic. I loved this game. They came out and it was an interesting thing with the Showboats and the Stars. It was a great, entertaining game, back and forth. It was what you wanted to see. A 27-23 finish. Memphis really had a shot, and the reality of it is that Memphis, I think, can really. They were a team that I feel like last year it was. Teamu was on the team, and that. I feel like they were a few pieces away, and this year I feel kind of like that they've got a few more pieces, and I think they've got something under their belt. See, that's the thing I like about here with the USFL. This has me really intrigued because, I don't know. It's a continuation. So it's like we're in season 2, but it's like we picked up where we left off. It's like the end of season 1 in a show. You're watching a series and you have that cliffhanger and you're coming back. And so you have all of these things that are there, and all of these storylines, all of these what ifs, where teams left off from last year, and you can pick up from there, which I really liked. And you've got some new wrinkles, and how are things going to affect that? And that's Memphis. Now, supposedly, like I said in that broadcast, they said that they had 30,000 people there in the stands. I don't know if it was 30,000 people, but it looked like quite a bit of people, if you ask me. That's just my thoughts and my opinion on that. I don't know if it's around there. We'll see what the official numbers say, but if they can get 30,000 people in Memphis and have what they have in Birmingham, the XFL might be the one who's not winning the fans thing here, and the whole hub city thing might not be hurting them as much as what people are saying. Now, I will say that the flip side of that, though, is that the alternate games there in Memphis and in Birmingham, which weren't the actual home teams, but it was the home field for the other ones, they weren't as packed. I would say that they probably had, I don't know, probably somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 fans. I don't know. We'll see. And it's hard to tell because those are larger stadiums. It isn't like a lot of these XFL stadiums where they're kind of in soccer venues where 15,000 people kind of looks like a lot of people in there. So we'll see. Cook has looked really, really good. Man. Looking at Cookus and that offense, they are just picking up right where they left off last year. This is a team that is poised to they could really take this North by storm as long as he can stay healthy, and that's the key for them. If he can stay healthy and continue this thing out, man, is he good? And this is where I'm saying you can have 12 teams because Cookus is kind of one of those guys to where never really gotten a shot, and I think that he can be a spring ball stud. And the reality of it is look here a couple years. I mean, offer the guy who's your star guy, a $500,000 or maybe $1 million over a year or something, because you're making that kind of money. All of the sudden, you might be keeping some talent in the USFL or the XFL and not going to the NFL. Its own thing. Colburn at running. Colburn, man. So Colburn, Roland, those guys are just like. Roland is just he is just kind of like Borgie. He is just a human highlight reel. He is a great slot receiver. I really, really like him. He is an X factor for this team. And Colburn, he is just a running back force. I will say, when watching the XFL and watching the USFL by far has much better running backs and much better running games. Now, I will say we're in year 2. So a lot of these guys have spent time in these, in these systems already, to where they're not just working on the basic stuff and working on chemistry anymore. A lot of these guys now are working on kind of more exotic packages and have a little bit more camaraderie. So like I said, they have a little bit of advantage. And two, when I'm sitting here looking at this, we can kind of like use what we saw last year and kind of build upon that. And that's kind of what I feel is fun with this. Receiving wise, Gray, Coleman also stepped in there. Both of those guys looked really good. I mean, but the way that Cookus was throwing the ball, he was making anybody look good. I mean, that was just the reality of it. The Stars, their defense just needs to just be there. That's just the reality of it. If they can make stops, they're going to win games. That's how good this offense is. They just need the defense to play well, and the defense played fairly well. I will say that the Showboats here with White and Kelly. So White started off a little rocky, and I think it was just some first game jitters. He had that terrible interception. Never should have thrown that ball. Never should have done that. It was a terrible play. But really, outside of that, take some of that stuff back. Those first couple drives. It's nice the fact that they tried Kelly, and I will say with White having the issues kind of that he had early on, it makes sense to give Kelly a shot. But once he settled down, he did fine. Collins ran good. This is a team that I think that is going to look solid for them. Looking back and see what you guys have got going on here. So, I hate missing the XFL games, but I do regret missing him. The game where no fans were there. No, the XFL fans are there, especially in DC, but not only them. Look like they're having a party they'll never forget. And I think that they're both having fantastic times, if you ask me. Like I said, I'm a guy who loves both of the leagues, and it's really hard for me to pick one over the other because I like them both. I just feel like when I'm sitting down and I'm watching football, the USFL it feels more like home to me. And I don't know why, because I love the Dragons and I don't have a team at all in the USFL. Like I said, there's just things that I like. I like the whole league. I would try to root for the Michigan Panthers, but I can't root for a Michigan team. I can't. We literally were at an AAU team just across the border in Michigan this past weekend, and it just felt dirty and wrong being in Michigan. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. I'm a Buckeye through and through. I bleed scarlet and red. That's just who I am, what I do. And it was cool that Marcus Ball got a sweet touchdown catch for them, and they're looking good. Looks like some people have gotten their XFL jerseys. Okay, so this is kind of one of my things, and I don't mean it mean. You guys, you can have your jerseys. The only jersey that this guy's wearing is my own. I'll wear team apparel all day long, but I don't know what it is. I'm just not going to wear another guy's name on my back. That's just so, that might sound silly. That might sound weird to you. I don't know. I don't do jerseys. I've got my own jerseys. I've got jerseys hanging up here from when I played ball, my jerseys and that. Okay, I take that back. If either one of my daughters are playing any major sports in college or a professional, then maybe I will play. I'll wear their jersey, which if they're not married will have my name on it anyway. So I guess that's, I don't know if that's cheating or not, but I don't do jerseys. That's just how I am. That's just who I am. It might be weird to you, but that's okay. I don't need jerseys except Denver Broncos and soccer. More football equals better football. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like here's the thing. What they found is they've done studies so do you work on something to perfect it or do it more? Which way do you get better faster? what they found is that those people who keep doing the task more are better than those who work on something and perfect it. So, what am I saying here? It's better for guys to be playing in these leagues, to be playing football that's actually meaningful in games than it is to be on practice squads and practicing and perfecting it. You're always going to be better when you're playing more, when it means more, when you're doing more, than trying to work on a craft. Now, does that mean that you're not going to get good in the one? No, but it always comes back to it always means more. And it's always better when you're doing it. So having these leagues does make football better, and it does make these guys better football because it means more with it. Let's keep rolling on because I am only through 3 games. Thought this game was fantastic. Loved watching this game. And the next game of the night was good as well. So going back to the schedule here, and if you're wondering, I'm on the website. I'm not on the app. So the Stallions and the Generals game, this game wasn't bad. The Stallions kind of had control of this game really the whole time, but the Generals aren't a bad team. I think a couple of things for the Generals. The Johnson 4 for 13 wasn't really as indicative as what I would think of that. I felt like when they had him in the game, he was just out of position, and the Brew Cup, he was okay, but I feel like I just wanted him to give Johnson the helm and just let him go. I think that things would be better. I didn't think that Brew Cup was bad. I didn't think that he was good. He's just like Luis Perez for me. I think that he's a guy that can be in there. He can kind of manage a game for you, and I don't think he's going to do anything stellar. He's not going to be that X factor for you, and I want an X factor as quarterback, and I can tell you Johnson's going to be the X factor. The problem is that I think that they did too much back and forth, and I think that they hurt themselves in setting up this game. Now, I will say that Victor only having 8 carries is absolutely ridiculous, and he needs to be having more carries. I think that him having more carries and Johnson having a few more carries, I think he needs to be having around 15 carries a game. Johnson needs to be having around 10, and I think that would be good for them. And I think that Johnson needs to be throwing the ball about 20 times a game. That's kind of where I feel, and I feel like that they were just off with that, and I think that things were just kind of off. But then again, they're playing against the Stallions team, which I still think is a very, very stacked team. Yes, they're missing Victor Bolden, which is interesting because he didn't really actually play a factor in that game for the Renegades like I thought that he would. But they're missing him this year, and Jamar Smith is kind of who we thought he was going to be, just a solid quarterback who's going to, throw some good touchdowns and have an interception. Now, he did get hurt, and Magoo came in there, and Magoo had a game for himself. The boy played, and, he really did a good job of just really making a really good, whether it be running the ball, whether it be passing the ball, he had a really good game. Marble, they need a running back. For some reason, Scarborough didn't really get a whole lot of carries, so I don't know what they're trying to do there. You would have thought with the way that he finished the season that Scarborough would have got more than 2 carries, so I don't know if he's hurt, what's going on there. But Magoo ran the ball when he needed to. Man, he showed real athleticism running the ball. He really took over that game. He was the reason why they won that game. Scooby Wright was out of this game. That defense, man, I don't know right now if that Stallions defense or that Roughnecks defense is better. I mean, both of them are just scary good. Let's see here. Looking at it, they had. Sorry, I don't know their stuff as well as the So what, sacks are the third thing. So they only had 2 sacks. on the day. But they did. That defense is just, it's scary good. They had Nate Holly, which is Nick Holly's brother, running around there. When they get Scooby right back, they've got McFarland's all over the place. They've got studs. That game was just fantastic, and it was fun to watch. Yeah, like I said, yeah, the Generals really didn't have they still kind of had a shot going into the fourth quarter, but really the game was over. Magoo kind of took it over, and it'll be interesting to see if, what they do with Jamar Smith, and they seem to be okay with both of them playing. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, all in all, it was a good day of football. Now going back, and let's move on. Let's talk about this Michigan Panthers team. This Michigan Panthers team, I thought, did a really nice job. And with that, so why I think that Memphis has such a good shot is because this Houston team, and I think that the Breakers team, they're more subpar to where I think that Memphis team is really going to get some wins and have a nice record at the end of the season. Because I think that they'll be the ones in the playoffs, because I just don't think that this Houston team's as strong. Nor do I think that Breakers team is as strong as what that Memphis team is. That Memphis team, if they can figure out a few things, they're going to win a bunch of games this year. This Michigan team, though, I don't know how good this Houston defense is, if it's good or if it's bad, but I can tell you that Michigan offense kind of looked good. And the thing about the Michigan offense that's kind of scary to me is that you had Strong, who came in, and he looked, yes, he was 5 for 5, but he didn't look the greatest. Love was killing it. Love had 3 touchdowns. Love looked amazing. Love looked great. He looked fantastic in this game. Not only did he look good, but Corbin and Scott the Third, those boys were running over everybody. They were hitting every hole. It was great. Their offense was kicking. They were working on all 8 cylinders, whatever you want to call it. Every cylinder was hitting. It was great. Walker had some really nice catches. Like I said, Ball had that really nice touchdown catch. Quinn had a good touchdown catch. Heyman had 5 catches. Corbin was doing what he was doing. Man, Scott is one of those guys who, like, you don't realize, because he moves so well and so good, you don't realize how big he is until he's running over guys. Like, and you're like, he's running over, and then you realize, oh, the dude's huge. Oh yeah, I forgot. He's not like a bowling ball. I mean, or like a tank. I mean, the guy is he's a big athletic guy and does well. This Gamblers offense is one that, Bahar, I thought he shows signs, but man, he threw those picks and it really, really hurt their team. Pledger he ran decent. I thought it was good. I thought that Thompson was going to be a guy on this team, so I don't know where he went or he didn't. Sorry guys if I forgot about you in the the Generals do miss Turpin. But I don't know if I feel like that was as big of a difference as it was. It's just that they just felt off. Their offense it felt like they never could really get things going and figure things out. And it was just like, by the time, like, that's why I don't like the 2 quarterback system. I felt like it was just one guy in, the next guy in, another guy in, and I don't know. See here, have the USFL on TBS broadcasting games on Friday nights. I don't know. We'll see. Tyler, for me, I'm not watching football to see the kicker. That's fine. I mean, kicking's still part of the game for me. DJ, to each his own. Late to the show, but man, the Roughnecks definitely got their mojo back. I don't know if their defense got their mojo back. I don't know about their offense. Silver's still throwing INTs back to his old ways. Cal 38, I'm going to make this short and sweet. Let Case cook. Love was awesome. USFL was fireworks. Great week for football as a whole. Yeah, it was a fantastic week. I enjoyed. I probably enjoyed the USFL games better than I did the XFL games, but man, I think the biggest highlight for me was the XFL with. I gotta go to it. All I have to say is, sorry, I was kind of like the Battle Hawks. I was trying to caw, but I just couldn't. I was choking, just kind of like the St. Louis Battle Hawks did. I mean, the Dragons put a beating on them, and I was kind of surprised to see. I was thinking that DiNucci was going to come out of this one unscathed, but you see our boy had to throw his interception in the end zone. But I've seen it so many times that it didn't like worry me like it has in the past. He made a stupid mistake, and then they turned things around. Good night. Hammonds is running. You know what? Hammonds is your running back. Now, Lindsey had some nice runs, but Hammonds is a guy. He was just putting on a show back there running the ball. DiNucci, what can I say? DiNucci this is the interesting thing. Think about this. We have not seen this before in any type of spring football. DiNucci he can legitimately, if he can throw over, I think he can throw around 270 yards this week. He can get over 2,500 yards for the season. That's averaging over 250 yards a game, which is pretty crazy to see in this setting. And he could quite possibly do that this week. I mean, he's been throwing at what he had. He had 260 in this game. So, he's right there. What can I say? Anything more about Pearson, Gordon, Green, McKnight? These guys are studs. I mean, VZ, their wide receiver core is just insane. And you can definitely tell that McCarron is not feeling well. He's not doing well. And that Dragons defense just pinned their ears back when they needed to, and they came after him. And it was kind of sad for him. You can just tell that right now he's not feeling well. Let's see here. How many times? They sacked him 4 times. They were all over him. He threw 2 interceptions. He's not how he was in the season. He just wasn't. And unfortunately you got to go throughout the season. It'll be interesting to see. I got a feeling that what's going to happen is both teams are going to win this week, and that it's going to come down to the tiebreakers. And it'll be interesting to see who's giving up more or less points for, points against. Let's see real quick here. Anything more about these guys? Aitman's finally coming along, and you could tell he was hurt earlier in the season, and now he's coming. Shepard, doing his thing. Hill had a struggle this game running the ball. They put Jennings in there, and I think Jennings ran well because I think that they weren't expecting him to run like he did and them give him the ball. But let's go ahead and look at the standings here real quick. So if we look at the standings. Yeah, I was hoping that maybe they might put the points scored in there, but if they can figure that out, I think Seattle might have the advantage, even though I think that looking at the schedule, I think that that St. Louis has an easier game than Seattle. I just think right now Seattle's going to have a hard. I think Seattle's going to have, even though they've got a harder team to play, I think they're going to have an easier way of winning, being able to score more points. I just don't think that that the Battlehawks, with AJ McCarron playing hurt right now, I don't know. That's a real concern for me. We'll see how things go throughout this week, but you can definitely tell he's playing hurt, and he got banged up again. The XFL playoffs reminds me of the old college football BCS system. Yeah, it just is what it is. You've got the South is just terrible. And if you think about it here, so you have DC, you have Seattle, and you have St. Louis. So the losses between all of them, literally Seattle, the only losses that they have are against DC and St. Louis. In St. Louis, the only losses they have again are against Seattle and DC. And DC, the only loss that they have is against the worst team in the league in Orlando, which they never should have let beat them. So when you look at it that way, it's kind of crazy that you have the 3 top teams in the league are all in the same division. And I would say then the next team would be the would be Houston. But if you were to swap the Vipers and the Guardians in there, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vipers right now, they could quite possibly, if it was earlier on in the season, they could have a playoff spot, clinched if they were playing in that division, especially if McClendon was healthy and they could have had him starting. But hey, that's how the cookie crumbles, and that's why they play the game, and unfortunately, that's how the divisions are set up. So, getting a little long in the tooth here. Let's continue working through these games. Going back through the schedule. That was the last game. And then the DC and the Renegades game. Listen, that Renegades team really tried. And yes, somebody had mentioned earlier about Teamu, not doing well, feeling well. I don't know. I can just tell you this, though. Teamu has decided that he's going to be the leader of this team, and he is the heart and soul of this team, and this team's going to go as far as he's going to take this team, and that's just how I feel it. Let's see here, Platoon, to simplify it, Seattle wins, they're in. Yeah, I think that they probably right there. Tiebreaker is confusing. Yeah, and two, they did not do a good job of explaining it, period. It was not explained well. So here, I have to be honest, the USFL is high quality. I'm impressed. It was great last year, but they hit the ground running this year. I think I think that what the USFL is putting out there right now is they are just a little bit ahead of the XFL, and I think that has to do with they got a really good crop of guys, and they kept a really good crop of guys, and the XFL had to take the guys that were left and had to take the guys that went from the NFL. So I think that you've got a lot of star power in the XFL. But I think that you've got a lot of really good talent that was in the USFL, and I think that the USFL picked up a lot of talent. The thing is that, it's just the USFL has just been really, really quiet about the way that they built this thing, and they built it right, and it looks good. This year they fixed a lot. They fixed some of those everything being red issues where, They took the orange, and I get it that they were playing homage to, but, syncing it up with all the rest of the Pittsburgh teams made sense with the Maulers. And again, it got away from the red hues, and then putting in the Memphis team and getting rid of one of the teams with the red and going with the nice blue and really modernizing that Showboats. It's spectacular, looked good. And I think as they expand, when they add new teams, they just need to make them cool color teams, and I think that it'll just be fine, and it'll work itself out. I think that they need to add in at least one team in green there, and this sounds silly because I'm talking about colors, but it does matter. The way that the game is presented, the way it looks matters, and two, I will have to say, this shows the difference, okay? Fox has all of these cameras, all of these camera angles, everything looked professional. It looked exactly like it would be if you were watching an NFL game. Whereas the XFL, the angles aren't always there in some of these smaller, and especially Cashman Field. Cashman Field was terrible this year with viewing angles and things of that nature, to where you really see just what kind of leverage Fox has and not that ESPN doesn't, but you could just tell that Fox has had this stuff set up and it shows, and it just was a really nice job there. Going back to this game though, DC, I was kind of taken away not really taken away, but I was kind of surprised that Smith didn't have more of a running game than what he did on the day. But I think they really keyed in on him, and that Renegades defense is just really good. Hammond had a good, decent day. Blair has really been coming on for them. I mean, he's kind of becoming like a go-to guy. Wolf only had the one catch, but he's definitely he is kind of one of those go-to guys, for them. The thing about the Renegades is I think that it might be just a little too late for them. Luis Perez, 31 completions, 41 attempts. That's just way too much for him. 1 touchdown, 1 INT. He doesn't need to be throwing that ball that much. He needs to be more of a field general as opposed to, doing that. Thing about it, Devion Smith got hurt in this game. Brown came in, tried to do a decent job, but I just felt like Smith being hurt kind of hurt this offense a little bit. Kelly Bryant, he came in kind of to run and spell in this game. I don't know if he will actually end up being the quarterback or if he's just going to be this decoy running guy. I think that if he could actually throw the ball, I think that he might end up being a better option for them than Perez, but not this late in the season. Sal Calinella, what can I say? I mean, he's their go-to guy. I will say that the Breakers could have really used him this past week. I think he would been, done a much better service having been back in the USFL than kind of on this Renegades team, because I feel like he and some of this other talent are getting wasted on this Renegades team. Vaughns was actually starting to look like the wide receiver they were hoping he would be. Brown had some decent catches out of the backfield. I think that that's where Brown really shines as a running back. He's not really your guy between the tackles, kind of like Brown is. But, you have that there. Let's see. So that, I think, finishes up the and I know I missed a lot. I'm sorry. I'm rushing. We're already way over an hour. And my throat I'm getting parched. So going back here, let's go ahead and let's look at that last terrible game. This was the worst game of the weekend. It was the last game. It was just like, this wasn't one of those things where it's like, this was a defensive, game through and through. And if you like defensive games, no, it was a sloppy game. And really, it wasn't until the fourth quarter that we really got anything. And, the Breakers kind of taking it in the fourth quarter, it really was just back and forth who could make the most mistakes. And that's kind of where we ended up with it. I mean, when you look at this, the Maulers, a total of 156 yards. I thought when they came out, it was the exact opposite. If you remember the Maulers last year, it was, we're going to run the ball, we're going to pound you to death and this and that, and they had a terrible running game and they couldn't get anything going in the passing game. And this year, it was like the opposite. They came out and Morgan was throwing bombs, every other play and out throwing his guys. And you're like, okay, so are we just doing the opposite of what we did last year? We're just going to come out here and heave the ball and show you that we're just going to be a passing team. I don't know. But I mean, you look at that, 156 yards total, 332 yards total for the Breakers. Looking at this Maulers team, like you said, Morgan was 6 for 15. It was atrocious. Williams didn't do much better. I don't know. They're going to have to figure something out. That offense, but it's a terrible offensive scheme. It's an old, archaic style of underdeveloped, I don't know, offense. It reminds me of something that you would see in the late 2000s. It's not really very innovative. Like I said, it's kind of like an archaic style of pro offense. I didn't like it, and they don't have the guys for it. Nobody looked good running the ball. Groshek, I didn't think he was good last year. I still don't think he's good. London, none of these guys really impressed me. Receiving the ball, I think Gaither is fantastic. Gaither is a great guy. Walker and Gaither are two really, really good pieces. Unfortunately, they don't have a quarterback that can get the ball to them, and they really don't have an offense. I should take that back. I don't think that the offense is offensive line is terrible, but I just don't think that the offensive line is necessarily where it needs to be. But they just need a new offense. I will be surprised if this Pittsburgh team, unless they make some big changes, get a new quarterback. I think if they would go to a running style of quarterback and running a little bit more RPO, things might change for them. But to run a pro style offense, they aren't going to be going anywhere with this. Now, looking at the Breakers, they don't have an offensive line, which was really hurting Bethel Thompson. He was having to get the ball out super, super early, and it took him. You could definitely tell it took him a while to get back into the American football style of playing football as opposed to the CFL style of football. But 23 of 41, he had a lot of incomplete passes earlier on, but he picked things up as the game went on, and as the game went on, he really took kind of the game over and had that touchdown there at the end. Looked all right. Jones, they pounded the ball with Jones. It was just hard sledding for him. 19 carries, which, they kept pounding the ball. I don't know. I'm not sold on him. Surratt, man, they targeted him a lot. 9 targets on the day and, 5 catches. They targeted Dixon, but a lot of those were just, he just couldn't get the ball. But Dixon, Adams, and Surratt are really good pieces. I think they're on the offensive side of the ball. I think they need to find a running back, which didn't they have Ellis from last year? So I don't know what happened there. I thought Ellis was going to be back. Let's see here. What do you guys got? I'm still proud of my Renegades, but dude, terrible clock management. The Renegades, I don't understand, dude. Tyler, you can go on a Ticketmaster and check sales. USFL is not looking good on tickets, and they're only $25 or $10. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't trying to say anything. They were just saying that they had a lot of people in stands. I will say that the Birmingham stands looked fairly decent, and so for the Birmingham game and for the Memphis game, they said they had 30,000 people there. I did not. It was at the beginning of the broadcast. They talked about having 30,000 people there. So I don't know if it was like 29, 28, something like that. I have no clue, but they did look like they had quite a few people in that stadium, and that Memphis stadium is fairly large. So you can take it for whatever it's worth. All I'm saying is that's what I saw. It'll be interesting to see. But I don't think that they did too bad with fans in the stands. It'll be interesting to see once we get into Ford Field in Michigan and when we get to Canton how things transpire. But I think Birmingham has a good following right now. Memphis has a good following. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that Houston team and what happens with the Breakers teams, just because that they're not home teams whatsoever. They're far away. So, but I think that it's working for them. But yeah, this was the worst game of the week, and these are two teams that I think the Maulers are going to struggle. I think that the Breakers, I think that, Bethel Thompson had to knock some rust off here, but I think that this team can get going, especially playing in kind of, I think that they might be able to figure things out. I think maybe 4 wins. Maulers, if they can get 1 win, I think that they'll be good. That'll be good for them on this season. I think the Panthers look really good. I think that, I don't know. I think that the Stars look fantastic. Stallions are looking really good. Breakers kind of okay. I think that Memphis is just going to be fine. I think Memphis is going to end up with like 6 wins on the season. I think they're going to look good. The Generals, the jury's out for me yet on them. I want to see a little bit more of them. I want to see how Mike Riley's going to tweak this thing and figure this thing out with this offense, because he is an offensive guru and he does a pretty good job with that. But I got a feeling that this team is going to take a step back this year. But if you remember last year, they started off with a loss and then went and won 9 straight, lost in the playoffs. But there you go. USFL won't be releasing official attendance numbers per Daryl Johnston. I just, I'm just kind of, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it all. But all in all, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the games this week. I had a really fun time with both leagues. I love both leagues. I think that there's enough play. There's enough there for each league to play. I think that there's enough there to where we can expand both of them. I don't think that I think the USFL could expand to 2 more teams here next year, especially with the success that they're having right now. I think that with the XFL, I think that they need to get another year under their belt, get a little bit more going here, figure some things out, do some more tweaks. I know that there are those of you who don't like the kick, which is totally fine with you, but if you ask me, it's part of the game and especially with the punting, I miss strategic punting. I miss pinning guys deep and them having to try to figure out how to get out of the hole. I miss that with the XFL. You get it with the USFL. Just those parts of the game. The thing that really hurts me with the USFL is I wish that they would move that kickoff back up to where there are some touchbacks and we can pin those teams back at about the 25 yard line and the 30-ish as opposed to the 35 and 40 where they were on this weekend. All in all, great weekend of football. Loved it. 8 games. Seriously, if you watched all 8 games, give yourself a pat on the back. That was a lot of football. 8 times 3, that's 24 hours of football this weekend. And guess what? We're getting 24 more this upcoming weekend. I'll either get another video out or I'll do another live stream this week and give you my power rankings and start working through stuff. I should have some more time this week, whereas last week was just a tough week for me to get any type of content out. So unfortunately, I just didn't. So I'm going to try to, if I can't get videos out to you, I'm going to try to do live streams just because they're easier and take up less time for me to prepare. And 2, I get to interact with you live as we go. So no one is watching the kicker. You've said that before. I don't care. It isn't about necessarily watching the kicker. It's about the fact that I am watching to pin a guy down on the 1. And you know what? If you can have a defensive stand and a guy who's got to hike the ball from a 1 and figure out how to get it out of the back of the end zone, you know what? That really adds a lot more dynamic in, especially when you've got a really good defense like that Renegades defense. Think about it. If King could actually kick the ball like he can, because King is a very, very talented kicker, instead of just having to either bomb the thing or try to plant the thing where he knows the guy's going to catch it on the 10. If King could actually angle that ball and kick that ball right where he can kick that out at the 3-yard line, just think how good that defense would be. And so you tell me again that you're not there to watch a kicker. You let Marquette King kick that ball like you know that he can kick it. All of a sudden now, maybe that offense doesn't mean as much as what they can do with that defense, and you got some more pick sixes, you got some more fumbles because guys are worried about getting stuck in the end zone. It adds a whole nother dynamic back into the game that you're missing because the ball's coming, because you kick the ball out of bounds and it's coming back out to the 35, or you're getting the return because they want that dynamic return game back in there, which is totally fine, whatever. Like I said, though, you're taking strategic part of the game out of it for me, and that's just my opinion, but you can have your opinion as well. So there you have it, everyone. An hour and 17 minutes so far. I guess it wasn't too terrible. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for watching. And yeah, we'll continue things on later on this week. If you have anything else, let me know down in the comments, and I'll try to keep up and kind of can continue on our conversation down in the comments. All right, guys, listen, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. Have a good night. Bye.